Hey there, good morning, friends. Let's check out what my YouTube history is. I'm going to show you a little bit of general systems theory, so called, and talk a little bit about the heuristics, right? We're still winding up heuristics for teachers, fall 2020. Let's look back. It's been historical and mathematical, and I would say philosophical, and there's been a lot of literature, so it's multidisciplinary. You're working with different age groups. Could be you're working with people who want to take a polymath approach, you could say, and so we're going to include economics as well. And that's where general systems theory comes in because it's cast as competition for economics. The idea being that economics, the discipline, has told us from the beginning that monopoly breeds complacency and inefficiency, and so the discipline of economics, by its own reasoning, should not be left alone to talk and think about bread and butter issues, money, all that stuff, banking. It's like we're all going to think about that one way or another, but it doesn't have to be through economics. General systems theory was already moving in the same direction. Kenneth Boulding, I would cite as a Quaker thinker who came up with it. Now, he wasn't the one who came up with GST, but he did come up with using GST in the direction of thinking about economics, right? Kenneth Boulding, I think you could also call an economist. And so, where I would look on a resume, for example, for competence is for GST, right? Awareness of. Now you'll say, but there's no universities offering this. And I'd say exactly right. The weakness of the curriculum is what keeps us depressed on this inner circle. If you want to read this diagram with me again, just a little bit. Here we're taking off in the direction of relative utopia compared to this track. This track, it makes more sense to head along if you're constrained to the inner circle. And that's a level of thinking. It's our vocabulary, it's our knowledge of science, it's our belief that we need UFOs to save us, that we can't solve our problems unless there's some deus ex machina. We're victims, we have good excuses for being failures as a species, right? And therefore we need to appreciate our tragic situation. And we have great tragedy directors, a kind of a movie director ready to lead us forward. Great tragedy scenario programming. We've seen a lot of that lately. We have torn into the palaces of Saddam Hussein and destroyed those, if you remember. Now, those by now would probably be tourist attractions, a lot of them. This idea that building a lot is a sign of psychopathy, a psychological problem to be building palaces that are artistic and so on. I don't think so, really. I don't think that was necessarily a problem. I was very active in those days around the issues of aluminum tubes and so on. There's still internet traces of my fighting that war, and so I don't say, and then we invaded anyway, or something like that, because there's no we there. I didn't take that side at any point, so I say we did not invade Iraq. We didn't do a lot of that stuff. And you say, oh, what, you're not American? And I'm so very much American, right? And I don't let others define necessarily what the U.S. does because I've got USAOS, right? The operating system of the United States. Now, of course, that's just science fiction. It's nothing that we have to think of except as kind of in a dream. But that's all the USA is either. So it's dream versus dream. It doesn't matter how big your tanks are or how endowed you are in your military if you don't have the identity of the United States. And that's something we can talk about. So relative utopia is where we've pushed it out. We've got a higher level of thinking, and I would say a stronger curriculum. And what it includes is at least these memes from the concentric hierarchy. Why? Because at least that proves that we're paying some attention to one of our better futurists, one of our stronger writers in the futurism department, our Buckminster Fuller. So for me, it's just, I can just go to a university and flip through the syllabus. And if there's nothing, if I know that we're setting up another generation to be ignorant of that very simple, kindergarten level mathematics, then we're still in the old culture. It's like a sign. We're on the inner circle still. And here, inner circle isn't meaning anything, especially as to your grip. I'd say these folks have already lost their grip. They don't necessarily know it. And I think part of the job here is to make it clear to them. All right, so visit my website, enjoy there. What I've been setting out to do here is study. I want to work with people more on design science and design science revolution. And that involves all this grunge technology here, all this, Facebook and Google, they've put out their respective React and Angular, and a lot of you know this already. You already know React and Django working together. There's kind of a lot of bureaucracy to set up, and that's kind of what I'm working up to. I've been a Python instructor, as you know, and one goal here on this channel is to get more advanced in our content over time regarding some of the frameworks and how Python plays well with others. And what we've been on is a Blender tirade, you could say, or Blender rant. What does that mean? Well, it means I talk about Blender a lot, but I don't actually join in sharing tutorials about it because I don't consider myself to be one of the Blender gurus, really. I watch Blender gurus. And that's true for a lot of topics, right? I'm always watching MIT chemistry and stuff. Like if I want to learn about orbitals, I don't read synergetics for that necessarily, right? It's like that's a useful heuristics, that book, but then there's all this other stuff to study, like Blender and like atomic isotopes. What is radiation? What is alpha and beta and gamma? We could pronounce those in funny ways. What are those? It's like, let's keep circulating through our syllabus, and synergetics is just one more book on that syllabus. So if you've been reading that for a while to get more insight into what we're talking about here, I'm gratified. Concentric hierarchy is especially accessible. Check out quadrant coordinates just for fun. Think about, 2,000 years from now, will this influence of the tetrahedron have made a difference? I'd say it's already made a difference. We already have lots of artifacts. Can you think of another subculture that's alternative, that has challenging, interesting, you could call it fringe by today's standards, material, and yet it's penetrated so far and so deeply already into the culture, right? It's already commercialized. It's already got toys, it's already got artifacts. It's already everywhere you look, is if you start to tune it in. And that's why I'm saying when it comes to this diagram, don't automatically take the interpretation that we're all here on this inner circle and we need to push out like what like a lot of us have already done a lot of laying of track. So now it's pretty easy to get into GST. I would welcome your joining the discipline. Talk to you soon.